Okay, part 3 of the multi-hooping, and hopefully the final part. Now, in my previous videos, I made an overlap between the two sections of the design. Let me just go to, have I split this one? Yes, so I'll just go fill the screen, there we go. So I made an overlap between these two sections. Now, if you have a machine that has pinpoint placement or precise positioning, one of those tools in your sewing machine that you can rotate your one design to meet up with the first design manually in the machine, you wouldn't need to do that overlap. So I just wanted to point that out, because you can get a very precise connection by using those tools. Also, you wouldn't need your registration marks, because you would embroider the first section and then you would use a template. So you can print templates, and I'll show you that shortly. But you would use a template to mark your hoop positions for your first hoop, the centre of the first hoop and the centre of the second hoop, and then you would re-hoop your fabric so that the centre of the second hooping is in the centre of the hoop, and then you can use your pinpoint placement or your precise positioning, or whatever your machine calls it, to actually move and rotate the design if it's not exactly lined up when you hoop it, because as I mentioned before, fabric moves, pulls, twists and distorts, so using registration marks won't exactly get it in alignment, and neither will using the centre of the hoop to hoop your fabric. So just bear that in mind. Now, if you want to know more about that, Bernina have actually got some great videos in the software for you to watch. So if you go to the home screen, which you can go from a design, or it'll open up at the beginning when you first open your software, if you've got your software set up like that. So I'm going to the home screen, and over on the left here you've got tutorials, and if you click on featured tutorials, it will go to the machine embroidery only tutorials. And I have already looked it up, but you could type in here whatever you want to search for. So I first of all searched for multi-hooping, but it didn't bring up all the multi-hooping videos that they made, because some of them had titles that didn't include multi-hooping in the title. So once I found out the sections by searching for multi-hooping, the actual number of the videos, I then could just scroll down and find the rest of them. So I've already done that for you, save you having to search. So we need to go down to 23. So you can see the numbers here. That's 6, so we've got to go quite a way. 10, 12, 19, 21, 22, 23. So the multi-hooping videos start at number 23, 2301, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then it goes to 24, which is the quilter interface. So 2309 is the pinpoint placement, how to do that in your machine. And as I said, you don't need the registration marks. There's also a video on continuous embroidery, where it shows you how to put your own registration marks in for continuous embroidery, and you don't use the multi-hooping tool to sort this out. You do it all in the embroidery canvas. There's also a video here about using the splitting tool to actually split a large design. I also mentioned in my previous videos that I didn't like splitting large designs, but the design they use in here has got some other motifs on top of that solid background that doesn't fit in the hoop. So you could actually get your splitting line to go underneath those other objects which would disguise it. So it is possible it is possible to split a large object, but if you've got other motifs on top, it's easier to hide the split. Does that make sense? This video talks about the registration marks. There's also a video on if you're using a workpiece like a tablecloth square or or even a quilt workpiece or a circular workpiece, then it shows you how to lay out that for multi-hooping. Also another design where if you just let the software split it, it would split sections that would be very hard to line up. So they talk about using the grouping tool in embroidery canvas to make sure that any little motifs are actually grouped together so that they don't actually split. So that's called forcing a split. Manual multi-hooping I covered, automatic multi-hooping I covered, but certainly worth watching those because you'll glean some more information from them. And of course, multi-hooping decisions and scenarios is where it starts. So you can either start at number 1 and go all through, or if you just need to know about the pinpoint placement, for instance, you can just watch that one. I did find that when I opened them up, so if you click on it, it'll open up here. Some of them, when I clicked on play, I got an error message. Don't panic, just close that, click on it again, and down here you'll see watch on YouTube. So if you're connected to the internet, you can click on here and it will open on YouTube. So you obviously it's some sort of link problem there, but definitely the YouTube link works. So you can watch that video. Okay. Right, now I did say I was going to talk about the options in this video. So I'll go back to embroidery canvas and here I am. Now if you go to multi-hooping, you will see a tool here for multi-hooping options. It is the options dialog box, but it opens directly under the multi-hooping tab. So that's the quickest way to get to your options. Is if you're in the multi-hooping, you can go straight to your options here and it'll be in the right tab. If you use the options tool up here, you can do that too. If you left click on it, you will have to actually click on the multi-hooping tab to get the multi-hooping options. So, but this one will take you directly there. There's not many options to worry about. There's add registration marks on output, and here you have a margin, small, medium or large. Now, you may want to change that. It defaults to medium. It should default to medium. You may want to change that at some stage to move the registration marks slightly. If they're falling on top of your actual embroidery, they are very easy to pull out, but if they fall directly on top of your embroidery, it's the end of the design ones that you need to worry about with that. Then you may not want that, and you might be able to get away with changing it to small, which moves the registration marks closer out to the hoop, so a smaller margin from the edge of the hoop. Or in some instances you might want to use the large option to have a larger margin that is further away from the edge of the hoop. That could be because when you send it to your machine, if your machine actually centers the design when it opens it, sometimes the registration marks fall outside the hoop and it tries to force you to use a larger hoop if that's available to you, or it says it won't fit in the hoop. So sometimes you can fix that by using a large margin. Or if none of that works, then you can deselect add the registration marks automatically on output. Then you can actually manually put your own registration marks in, which means you can put them wherever you like, remembering that, well, they've got to be in the overlapped part of the hoop. So if I just close this for a minute, I'll leave it on medium and go OK. So your registration marks would have to be in this section of the hoop here, where the two hoops overlap, or if there's more than two hoopings, you would have to put each lot of registration marks in the overlapped section. You do that in embroidery canvas, so I'll show you that later. And as I said, if you're using pinpoint placement, you don't need any at all. So you would deselect that in the options if you're going to use your pinpoint placement. Below the margin options, there is optimize color changes when adding hoops automatically. And if you watch those videos that I mentioned in the homepage, the Bernina videos, it tells you when you don't need to do that. There are two ways of bringing a design into your workspace. There's insert and open, and one of them, it's best not to optimize color changes when adding hoops automatically. So watch those videos and make notes of what you're advised to do there. It's a bit pointless me going through everything that they've got already done for you, and very well too, very concise. Okay, now there is a couple of other issues that you might encounter. If your design is very large but just fits inside your hoopings, your multi-hoopings, the first part of the design to stitch, and we can go to preview hoopings to actually open a docker here showing us the preview of the hoopings. If the first design can fill the whole hoop, and it's desirable to get as much as you can of your design in the first hooping. So when you're laying out your hoops, it's a good idea to keep that in mind and try and get as much as you can in hoop number 1. Hoop number 2, if that was also full, then you haven't got much wiggle room to even using the registration marks. You haven't got much wiggle room to be accurate in your hooping. So it's probably a good idea in that case, if you've got to consider splitting the design again so that you don't have too much in your hoops, so that it's completely full, and even if you used your pinpoint placement, you wouldn't be able to rotate or move your second design because you haven't got any wiggle room around your hoop. In this case, there's plenty of room, but if you had a much bigger design, you might run into trouble. So just consider that if you can't get it to line up, it may be that you need to actually create another hooping to split the design again. Okay, now if you're not going to use the registration marks, you will need to print templates, as I mentioned, and that's done up here in your print preview pane up here. So if I click on that, and this is in those videos from Bernina as well. So normally you have the design worksheet and a layout of the whole design. You can see here that I've got one hooping, position number 1, center of position number 1, and center of position number 2. So you can mark those center positions on your fabric. You need to show the hoop, so you need to change a few of these options depending on what you already had set up. So under the options, you will need to show the start and end crosshairs, and I think the hoop template from memory. Let's try that. No, let's try just, the hoop template. But watch those videos, they'll tell you for sure. Let's go OK and see what we get then. Okay, now you can see these red lines. I don't know if you can see them, but there is a red vertical line and a red horizontal line, which is the start and end. And because the design starts and ends in the center, that's what it's set to by default in the software. So if it's not in the middle, your design start and end are is in the wrong place. So you need to go back in and make it start in the center of the design and end in the center of design. You'll get those vertical lines. That will be the center of the whole design, so you can center up your template on your fabric. And then you would need to mark these crosshairs here where you need to position each hooping. Okay, so that's that part of it. If I go to the next page, I have actually got a template, full-size template of the first part of the design, and next page again, I've got a full-size template of the second part of the design. Now you can see the registration marks here. You can either print out these as well, or you can just show these as thumbnails. So if I go into the options, up here in the hooping sequence, you can print as thumbnails so that you know the printing order, because you've already printed out your large template. So I'll go OK there, and now you can see that they're just little thumbnails, so you can see that hooping which part is which in the order they hoop. I don't think there's a lot more I can tell you now because there's so many different variations of what you can come across with different designs. So if you go back to my first video, I remember I actually had a hoop that was big enough to hoop individual objects without having to split anything. When it comes to splitting, it gets a little bit more complicated. So you really need to have a scenario, and with all the theory that Bernina has provided in their videos and what I've told you, if you still run into trouble, then you can contact me, message me on my Facebook page. I'll put a link to that below in the description, and with a specific question, and I'll try and sort out an answer for you. Oh, I didn't cover the your own registration marks. So let's delete in multi-hooping. Let's go to their options and remove add registration marks on output and go OK. All right, so now they're still there though. I'll just close that, and I've probably saved this. This is multi-hoop. Oh no, this is the art design. I might have to undo and re-hoop. Let me just look at the preview hoopings again. Yep, no, they're still there. Okay, so I might have to close that, undo. I played around with a couple of different hoops. Let's just remove a hoop. Let's remove this second hoop and delete hoop. All right, so as you could see, you can delete a hoop. You can also rotate your hoops. They don't have to be 45 degrees. They can be any angle whatsoever. So sometimes it's more beneficial to actually have your hoops at all sorts of funny angles. So you need to experiment. Let me just add a hoop and bring that down with my new, the design's already split, so I'll try and copy what I had covered there. There's a split there. I'll just need to preview the hoopings now to see if my split is in the right place. Ah, no. You see, nothing's ever simple when you muck around. Let's preview hoopings now. There we go. So I have got my split in between the two hoopings. Oh, that's right. What's happened here? I've got to select this hoop. and move it up so that everything's green. There you go. And now preview hoopings. No wonder it struggled. All right. So those registration marks have gone now. Good. Let's go back to digitizing. And in here we can add our registration marks. Now you've got basting stitch markers in your digitize to choose from. So you've got a crosshair, which is horizontal and vertical. You've got a X-shaped crosshair, or you've got two different types of arrows. So it's entirely up to you what you use. And as I said, if you put your own in, you'll need to put 2 registration marks in this area and make them one colour. So let's just choose this arrow, for instance. Okay, and so I'm going to, it's a bit like a pattern stamp, if you're familiar with that. So you just need to put it there and maybe down here. Okay, now I've got those 2 in there. They will stitch at the end of the first part of the design. I've got auto scroll on, so I need to escape out of that tool so that doesn't go everywhere. So I need to stitch those at the end of the first part of the design. So I'll select that one, hold my shift key down to select that one and move them up one object. Okay. Now I want to duplicate those. So while they're both selected, I'll right click and duplicate. And they've gone to the bottom of the colour film, which is what I want actually, because I need them to stitch. No, I need them to go back up. But I need to change their colour first, so I'm going to change them to, well, it doesn't matter what you change them to. Let's just go purple. And I'll move them up one object as well. So what will happen now is these 2 will stitch after the first part of the design. Then for those of you who don't have precise placement, you'll stitch these 2 on the stabilizer so you can line up your fabric to stitch the second part of the design. And then place your fabric. Now if you had another hooping, you would also create, these are your starting stitch markers. You would also create another set at the end of this design ready to line up the next design. So you just work your way through that. Now it is very important, and if you watch the video on forcing a split, that will explain this. You need to group these together with the hoop that you want them to go in. So this first hooping, I need the 2 stitch markers at the end to stitch in that hoop. So I'm going to group all those objects together. Okay, and then I need these to be in one group as well. So that will force the hooping to keep the markers in the right hooping. All right. Now you're ready to either export it to a machine file, or if you're in embroidery canvas, you can actually send to your machine directly and it will send the hoopings. So we can preview hoopings back in multi-hooping. And you can see my own registration marks here. And then I've got another set of registration marks here to line up with. Okay, so now I can go, oh well, you can even, I think you should be able to do it from here. Can we send right to card or machine from the multi-hooping? Yes. So it will, when you do that, it will bring up the 2 hoopings and you can click send now. I'm not going to do that because I haven't got my machine set up for that. So I hope that's cleared up or covered a few things that weren't covered in the Bernina videos. And also, as I said, you can send me a message on my Facebook page if you have any further questions or would like a little bit more clarification. And if you can explain your scenario quite clearly, that will help. Thank you.